Ladies, gentlemen, boys, and girls, our long national nightmare is officially over. The South Carolina baseball season has come to an end. Thank God. But what happens now? Locked On Gamecock starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. And we've got I wouldn't say a fun show, but we got a show, and we're going to celebrate because it's the end of the South Carolina baseball season. We're going to talk about what happened in Hoover and more things as well. Before we do, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, guys, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And now more than ever is a great time to sign up with our friends at FanDuel because new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. If you would have gone to FanDuel.com, you would have taken up my own advice. And I hate to say it, but it was accurate and it was correct, and it made money for anyone that listened on Twitter. And that was Florida beating South Carolina by 2.5 runs tonight. They won by 8. To no surprise, that is what happened. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to celebrate. It's the end of a horrible, horrible season. This is not going to be a 20-minute episode where we talk about Paul Mainieri getting fired. It's probably not going to be a 15-minute episode about Paul Mainieri getting fired. It will be about what happened tonight, what happens next, and that's about all going into the offseason, okay? We'll have some updates as the season rolls on, or the offseason rolls on, about where players are going to play in the summer baseball leagues, all that kind of stuff. You're going to the Cape, Northwoods, Coastal Plains, all that kind of stuff. We'll keep up with all of it. What we're hearing about the draft and upcoming. But before we do, let's talk about what happened first and foremost tonight, and then kind of break down where you go from here at the end of the season. So South Carolina falls 11-3 at Florida against Florida and Hoover. They were the final game of the day because of a weather delay that postponed the final game between A&M and Mississippi State into tomorrow. But you lose 11-3. It was very similar to everything that's happened in this season for South Carolina, especially as of late. They got up to a 1-run lead. They had multiple runners on the first inning, couldn't play anybody else. You get up to a 1-0 lead. They get scoreless first, right? Which was great out of Brendan Stone. But then you go into the second inning, and what happens to South Carolina is what's happened to them all season. You give up crooked number after crooked number. You give up a run an inning for 4 straight innings from the second through the fifth. You're able to somewhat try and claw back. At one point, you're down 7-1 going into the 8th. You scratch across 2 runs in the 8th to make it 7-3. You had 2 back-to-back base hits that allowed you to do that. Now, keep in mind, they were the previous 29 batters in this game failed to have 0 extra base hits. So you were not having anything from a power standpoint, from a gap-to-gap standpoint, or anything like that from this offense, which is great. Not great. So you go to the 8th inning. It's 7-3. Maybe something happens similar to what happened against LSU. You've had some situations where you've battled back sometimes of the season, but what happened is what's happened for most of the year. And you gave up 4 runs in the 8th. The pitching couldn't hold, and you lose 11-3. And 11-3, it just feels like that's like being like an 8-run deficit doesn't feel abnormal for this team. This is a team that finished the year, right? 6-25 against SEC teams, the worst in program history. You had some bright spots. You had some, listen, the top of the order today was fantastic. All 3 of your top 3 batters in the lineup had at least 2 hits. Bo Hollins, a freshman from Lexington, he was 2 for 4. So, 4 of your top 5 batters in the lineup had at least 2 hits. You had 11 runs, but it was a typical 11 hits, but you had a typical box score that South Carolina tends to have, which is 11 hits, 2 errors, You only scratch across 3 runs. Scoring 3 runs on 11 hits is insane. Like that's just – it's almost impossible. It's just almost impossible to do, but this team has found a way to do it. So I think – listen, I'm not ever happy when South Carolina loses, right? Like that's not what we're after at all. It does feel like a massive weight is kind of lifted off the fans' shoulders in this team now that the season's over. Like this does feel like you would have loved to see them compete further into the season, but there's a part of us that I think, I think there's a part of everyone in here that probably thinks that like, yeah, man, I kind of thank God this whole thing's over, and you still have South Carolina athletics. A lot of times with baseball, it seems like that's the last team of the year that is going to be playing in the athletic calendar for South Carolina. Well, lo and behold, you got a softball team playing in Super Regionals, hosting Super Regionals on Friday, so we'll go out and support them. But this season comes to an end, and it comes to an end in a very frustrating way. It just comes to an end in a very frustrating way. And I mean, you look at Florida and South Carolina. Florida used to be a really, really good rivalry in this conference, and you end up finishing the season to them 0-4 with a minus 39 run differential. There was a play in the 8th inning that kind of seemed like it summed up the whole situation for South Carolina this season. And that was a pop-up hit into foul territory. I think it was in the 8th inning before Florida scored all of their runs. I think they had played 2, and it was like 9-3 at this point. But a pop-up hit right halfway between home plate and first on the first base line. Pitcher goes running after it. First baseman comes crashing out trying to catch it. The catcher comes running up as well. That, by all means, should be the first baseman's ball. The first baseman is breaking in. It's a further distance from the catcher. Now, the catcher usually has precedence over that call. But by all means, the first baseman should be coming in, screaming, ball, 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 mine, me, whatever the code is for your team. That's his play. A pitcher, for the most part, unless there is a PFP situation where you are fielding a bunt, fielding a weak hit ground ball, fielding something where you're trying to get a runner out, a lead runner out. Like I said, they're trying to move runners over, whatever. Keep your ass on the mound, dude. Like that's not, for the most part, you're the least athletic player on the field. And you're also the most prone to injury because you're not used to it. You have one job, stay on the mound. Pitcher comes crashing off the mound, comes into fair territory, calls off both players, which should never happen. Drops the pop-up, foul ball. It's that kind of thing. It's just a microcosm of how the game has gone this year. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about tonight's game, what goes next, and whether or not there's some good news on the horizon for South Carolina, because now you have to get into the transfer portal season. Now you have to go get into the portal and figure out some players that you can bring in as well. Do you blow this thing up? Do you start from scratch? Do you go find some key pieces? There might be some key pieces you want to bring back. Listen, the first thing this team needs to do is address all of its inferiorities and inefficiencies, I think, as a team. And whether that's on the coaching staff, the roster, pitching staff, offense, whatever, because it's a lot of things combined. Regardless of where it is, it needs to be done, and it needs to be done honestly. And to figure out how to fix this thing, you have got to first at least admit where the actual problems are and start from there. Now, before we move on, I do want to give a quick call or give a quick shout out to our friends at FanDuel. You guys have heard me talk about FanDuel before. You hear me talk about them again. Right now, it's the NBA Conference Finals, and the playoffs are in full swings. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have way more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, personally, I love the player props. I love going over or under on how many threes a player's going to hit, how many points, how many rebounds, all those things. Tonight, I think it's a Tuesday night. We kept it simple. Love the fact that the Timberwolves were a 7-point underdog, even though it's on the road. But you have an OKC team that's coming in off of playing in just 1 day's rest. All of those things are in play for you, and it's all at your fingertips at FanDuel.com. Now, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up because head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks right after this. All right, welcome back into the last part of the episode. Listen, like I said, we're not going to turn this into a Paul Mainieri needs to be fired thing. I feel like we've done a lot of that, to be honest, and like not try to do so in a negative way, which I think it's like innately and inherently it is negative by nature because it's about someone losing their job. We're never going to pull for someone to lose their job, right? We're never going to pull for that. But when you look at this season, like I'd say this over and over. I said it a bunch on last night's episode. You guys have heard me say it before throughout the season. If we're going to talk about sports, we're going to do it with logic and reason and as much factual information as possible. So what I'm diligently and adamantly trying to do is say, hey, here's all the numbers, here's all the facts that we have, and then make an educated decision, okay? Now, after the game, Paul Mainieri was asked about this, and his response, by all means, or his attitude towards what was going on after a 28 and 29 season was, yeah, I feel very confident in the administration that he's going to be coming back. I will say this. To his credit, I think he probably is coming back. I don't know if he should be, but I think he is coming back. I think you have got to make a move with the pitching thing or the pitching coach. We talked about it yesterday. And even if that's keeping him on staff and keeping him as a recruiter, fine. You have got to go out and make a splash in the portal immediately. Now, you have already been told this is what they're going to spend on this is what they're going to spend on. They're going to spend more on South Carolina baseball than most teams will. Most teams are going to pull back a little bit. South Carolina's going to go forward a little bit. This is a great thing. Like this, we'll see how it all plays out in the next calendar year, but it feels very much like this administration, this athletic department has done a great job of being able to figure out how to be fiscally responsible in this new age of college sports where you have got to figure out a way to allocate money in a fair way. Like, and South Carolina is in a great position in a lot of ways, and they're in a tough position in a lot of ways because the two sports you have to go fund the most are two sports that aren't doing well and traditionally have done pretty well with baseball and men's basketball. So you have got to invest more into those to make them competitive. And now you got to figure out where that other money is going to probably go away from. I think this program has done a great job at retainment. And that is something we've talked about before, retaining talent, retaining coaches, all that kind of stuff. People really seem to want to be in Columbia, South Carolina. I love Columbia, South Carolina. And if you can stand the heat, like literally and figuratively, it's a great place to come coach, raise a family, all that kind of stuff. Love Columbia. And I can see why a lot of coaches want to be there. You've done all the building and like foundational work for football, right? Like this is one of the things they kept talking about last year, which is such a big deal, is you went into the season and went into your recruiting with what were all, by all means, top 10 facilities in the country. South Carolina had like Oregon, Bama, Georgia, probably A&M for sure, Texas, I'm sure, Ohio State, like these like very big, prominent powers and blue bloods and all that kind of stuff and teams that frankly have a lot more money than South Carolina. You're in the top 10 with those teams, right? So you've already kind of built that foundationally. Another thing they did a great job of at South Carolina with baseball or with football was they kept players and went after them early. You heard that when we had Darren Usher on, he's talking about how, man, one of the things we did was we had to make sure we had to get into works with the agencies or representation for players like Lenore Sellers, for players like Dylan Stewart early and often, because you want to make sure you had those two kids stay home and never enter a foot or dip a toe into the deep end of the transfer portal. Then you saw all this other stuff with the work that you were doing with the actual like collective at South Carolina, where you're getting all these deals and announcing all these deals with each individual player, and they were doing so at an early time in the portal and at a great rate as well. So, and I mean rate of speed of like by the time it was happening, because they got out ahead of so many things. The planning ahead was a great job by this team. I think that the planning ahead they did with Dawn Staley, where they gave her extension and she's been making upwards of $4.5 million over the next couple of years and $5 million down the road. That's also planning ahead, making sure you have that staying put. They're going to allocate more money to Lamont Paris. They're going to allocate more money here to baseball here next year. The place where I think this is a strength possibly for South Carolina is Paul Mainieri at the very least has a couple things working for him. Baseball coaches have been fighting against having to be fiscally responsible for years. Like, what I mean by that is football, it's like, oh, listen, you want that guy? He gets a full ride. You want that guy? Full ride. That guy? Full ride. It's 100% scholarship. Basketball, same thing. Baseball, you get 11.7 scholarships, which is, I don't even know how you do that math. And then also, you have to figure out ways to make sure you are able to bring in as much coaching as possible, because up until I think this year, you only had 2 assistant coaches, and you had like a community coach or some crap like that, which is like, and I forgot the exact names of all, but we had 2 assistants in college and like a grad assistant or something like that, right? So you've always had to figure out a way to do more with less when it comes to baseball, especially from a way of stretching your dollar as much as possible. Like, to put it in a South Carolina perspective, football is always able to go shopping for groceries at Lowe's. For baseball, you've been having to go to Aldi for your entire career. Okay. So Paul Mainieri is at least familiar with that, and having to like stretch a dollar a little bit longer and figure out how to allocate those funds and to certain players, what positions you need, and positions of need in general. Right. Then you talk about what he also has working in his favor. And it's not just the fact that he won a national championship. Listen, guys, I have, over the last year, like I've said, I've worked for the affiliate out of Baton Rouge. I've never seen anyone as diligent about baseball and I don't say knowledgeable, like they're knowledgeable, but like as like locked into baseball throughout a lot of the seasons, like not just baseball season, but especially baseball season, where it is a very, very big focal point of the entire athletic department, the entire fan base. They all are very invested into that. They have been that way for a long time. They won like 6 national titles in like the 90s or something like that, right? So when you have that rabid of a fan base who expects to win, and you got to think too, okay, when Paul Mainieri first got to LSU, they weren't great in basketball. They definitely weren't good in women's basketball. They had just won a national title in football under Les Miles. They had the baseball team where you're bringing in a new coach, because I think Burtman retired, so you're bringing in Paul Mainieri, and they were bad his first year. They missed the postseason. Then the second year, they started out 6-11. They ended up in SEC play, but ended up making the Men's College World Series. By the third year, that's when they won the World Series. So there is a case to be made for like giving this guy a second to see if he can turn it around. Now, listen, here's the other part about that. It was damn near 20 years ago. So it's a different time. Paul Mainieri was 50 at the time. He's now 67. The game has changed a lot. You weren't facing starters or closers or anyone in between that was constantly throwing 98 to 100. You're going to have to go out and find some of those guys. And I think what you do, and this would be my plan, maybe we'll do a whole show on this, but my plan of what I would do if I was in this position, I'd go out and get hitters from high school. I go out and get pitchers now. Maybe I think there's a core group of hitters you have coming back that could be really good. I really do. I maybe I'm an idiot when I say that, but I think there's a core group of hitters in that lineup that have the ability to be really good and continue to develop and be a good college baseball offensive player. That has not been shown a ton this year, but I think that you have a lot of new guys that were new faces this year. You definitely need someone, or maybe multiple guys that are going to have some power in that lineup. You're losing Ethan Petrie, who's been your only power threat this season. He was 1 of 2 last season, but he's going to be gone. The other thing that I would go all in on is you got to find arms. You got to find live arms. We are done in this day and age of baseball. As much as I hate it, I love watching that Zach Cowan kid pitch from LSU because he's 90 to 92, low 90s. He'll touch 94, but he is a righty on righty, straight change, or maybe it's a circle change. I can never remember. And a little bit of a little slider as well. But like that combination of, listen, I am going to sit 92. I'm going to paint the black. I'm going to be right at your knees the entire time. I'm going to come in when I have to. and I'm going to keep you off balance with off speed. I'm not going to try to overpower you because I don't have that kind of stuff. We have seen him be great all year. Like there's very few of those now. I love that style of pitching. I love watching Greg Maddux, paint the black at 86 and stuff like that. But that day and age of baseball is over. You need to go find someone that is going to throw gas and have a live arm. And you need to find several, and you need to find several quick. But I think that's where you start is where can I get some guys with some good spin rate, some good velo, and guys who can throw it off the bump. And then you need to find one guy in that lineup that you can count on to, and even if he hits 260, can he put up 15 plus home runs? That's what you need. Because right now you don't have that. Develop some other guys, use this summer to go figure that out, and then see what you got come back next year. Because I don't think Mainieri's going to be gone. But you got to make some changes somewhere. And to be honest, you got to make changes in a lot of places. It's more than one place. So if I'm South Carolina, where I'm starting, and we're frozen. If I'm South Carolina, where I'm starting is with a power pitching like makeover and getting guys with live arms. I'm also starting first and foremost making change with the pitching coach, moving him whether he's a recruiter or not. Like I don't care if he has to stay on the road the whole year. Put him as an area scout, whatever. But you have got to make a change on the mound. You cannot go into SEC play and give up double-digit runs in 14 of 16 games. That happened at the later part of the season. I mean, that cannot happen. That cannot happen. You have zero chance of winning. I mean, think about that. The football team didn't give that many points per game at times during the season. So it's maybe we got Clayton White. Maybe he becomes the pitching coach. I don't know. But you've got to figure out a way to minimize that and then start working on the offense as well. That is all for today's show. I appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow with more Locked On Gamecocks, talking football for the first time in a minute. And I hope you guys join us. Until then, go Cox.
It's okay. The Wi-Fi says it's great.
Still recording. So, but thank you.